Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg, and today we're returning to Andor Season 2. The main focus of this video is to make some big connections between Andor and other Star Wars stories further down the timeline. Some fans think they found an interesting cameo in episode 12, and we're also going to answer the question of where the heroes are by the time of A New Hope. This includes the story of Mon Mothma's whereabouts during the Battle of Yavin. If you've ever been curious about that, then stay tuned till the end. It's going to be an absolute blast. Before we dive into it though, my dear friends, please do me a huge favour. Please be sure to hit the big subscribe button down below, hit the bell to be alerted every time that I post a new video, but no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight in. So, a massive fan favourite character from the Disney Star Wars era who you may have forgotten about is Cara Dune. She was a huge ally of Din Djarin in the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. As you guys know, there's a lot of IRL drama between Gina Carano and Disney, an ongoing lawsuit after she was fired from the show, but essentially Cara Dune was written off. In Season 3, Grief Karga explains in-universe that Cara Dune was recruited by New Republic Special Forces. This was a promotion following the capture of Moff Gideon. But her appearances in Mando take place post-episode 6. We know she was once a shock trooper for the Rebel Alliance, but until Season 3, she never formally joined the New Republic. She wasn't a joiner. She left the Alliance after the Battle of Andor. She disagreed with the political reform of the New Republic, and instead she became a mercenary. But fans have long been curious about her origins. We know she was from Alderaan, like Leia, and we know the destruction of her home planet solidified her rebel heart. But she was off-world at the time, and fans have been asking, well, where was she? Andor Season 2 might have just answered the question. In the Season 2 finale, in the shots where we see the rebels training on Yavin, following Melshi in the jungle, there is one character who many eagle-eyed fans think could be Cara Dune. The soldier at the front is wearing a very similar collar piece, and while I don't think Tony Gilroy intended this to be Cara, if it was her, the cameo makes sense. It explains where she was when the Death Star destroyed her homeworld. Although some do say that she only joined because of the destruction, so at this stage she wouldn't have been on Yavin. I don't personally think this character is Cara Dune, but if they ever confirm there was some intention or they retcon this to be Cara, I really wouldn't complain. This means that prior to A New Hope, and prior to the Battle of Yavin, she was already entirely dedicated to the fight, to want to take down the Empire. The destruction of Alderaan would have just added fuel to that fire. But let's be honest guys, with everything going on with Gina Carano, with the lawsuit against Disney, why would they ever put her in as a cameo? Especially having it being a different actress, and knowing the backlash that would cause. I'm not the first person to put forward this theory. Screen Crush talked about it, as did a few fans on Reddit and X. A couple of folks tagged me and said, what do you think about it? I think it's definitely possible, but I really don't think that was the intention. And so now my dear friends, we're going to talk about some more Andor characters, and where they are further down the line. Notably the survivors of Season 2. This indeed is a baffling question, and while to some extent it's impossible to say for certain, there are time sources which give us a few clues. It's similar in nature to the dilemma of Ahsoka's absence in Revenge of the Sith. She wasn't created yet in 2005, but through later additional stories like the Clone Wars Season 7, Lucasfilm answered the question retrospectively. I can see them doing something similar for characters like Clea, Vel, and Wilmon. But today, I want to attempt to answer the question myself, providing you with some tantalizing and reasonable theories to sink your teeth into. It's going to be fun. But in order to answer the question of where are these characters during A New Hope, we need to first address where are they in Rogue One, which comes just after Andor's 2nd season. So let's begin with characters we do know the fates of, and then we'll come on to those unaccounted for. Needless to say, Cassian, Melshi, K2 and Raddus all perished during the Battle of Scarif. Raddus over Scarif in his ship the Profundity. But the main Andor characters who don't even appear in the movie are the 3 incredible survivors I mentioned just a few moments ago, Clea Marquis, Vel Sartha, and the guy who gets all the Gorman girls, Wilmon Pack. Beginning with Will, after the Gorman massacre he was struggling with a limp due to a leg injury. This is the reason he didn't go with the commanders to fight on Scarif. He couldn't even walk, let alone fight. As for Vel, well, she's pretty much done fighting on the ground, and now she's part of recruiting and training new rebel troops. This was confirmed by Tony Gilroy himself. The Alliance military needs support staff, and we also saw her doing some armory work in episode 9. Furthermore, my dear friends, she's a personal advisor to her cousin Mon Mothma, the leader of the Rebel Alliance herself. As for Clea, well, she was never really truly a fighter. That doesn't mean she didn't put her life on the line. She was the entire intelligence division of the Axis cell. But with Luthen dead, and her now being on Yavin, I believe her work with the Alliance is pretty self-explanatory. And even though they've not confirmed it, I reckon she's part of a unique faction of the rebellion known as the Cryptology Department. This was within the intelligence branch, whose entire work revolved around decoding and deciphering Imperial code. I imagine she continued such work in the battles of Hoth and Endor, but she was never front and center. I hope one day they confirm this. I guess the only problem with this theory is that despite having the best droids and the best computers, the success rate of Alliance cryptology was only about 15%. Nonetheless, it was a vital component of info being fed to Rebel headquarters. But now for the question of where are these characters in A New Hope? Because they remained on Yavin, there's a very solid chance they were in the crowd of Rebel soldiers, commanders, and pilots at the end of the film, during the throne room celebration scene, where Luke, Han, and not Chewie receive medals from Leia. Now I think I've spent enough time in this one and other uploads talking about possibilities for Claire and Val, but there's another character who should have appeared in A New Hope, but didn't. Mon Mothma, who only appears later in Return of the Jedi. But now that Andor has come to an end, fans are pretty curious to know where she was during the Battle of Yavin. Well, it turns out there is a canon answer to this, and it's found in the first novel of the series from a certain point of view. In the short story Contingency Plan, following the destruction of Alderaan, Mon was starting to think hope was lost. When she learnt about the plan to infiltrate the Death Star, she was almost certain the rebels were not going to win. She thought the Empire was far too powerful. She didn't know about Luke Skywalker yet, and I don't think anyone expected them to exploit the Death Star's weakness. Panic mode set in, and so what did she do? She drew up a contingency plan. She actually wrote a letter of surrender to Emperor Palpatine. Ooh, bad move. She remembered her Senate speech, and with Bail Organa now dead, she believed the rebellion was screwed. General Dodonna had more faith. He believed in the briefing that he gave. By using small one-man starfighters, the rebels would slip through the Death Star's main defenses, maneuver down a narrow trench leading to the exhaust port, and fire proton torpedoes directly into it. Even though Dodonna was confident, he wanted Mon Mothma to survive, so he evacuated her aboard a shuttle. And that's when she devised her surrender speech. But luckily she never had to use it. The Battle of Yavin was a raging success, and having heard about the victory, she permanently discarded it. The contingency plan would have been devastating, and the Battle of Yavin restored a lot of faith Mon had in the new rebellion. The Alliance lives to fight another day, and very shortly afterwards, Mon reunites with High Command. The Alliance rallies in the wake of its extraordinary victory, and its message will spread like starlight to 1,000 worlds. Mon never spoke of a contingency ever again, and one of the most powerful sentences in the final paragraph, Mon believed in victory again. She will not weep at the burden. This was a day of celebration.